All right. Well, that was something, you know. Um Listen, this thank God I'm recording this the day after, the morning after, and not immediately after like I usually do in back-to-backs cuz I think I'm a little more calm now. This was the first time this season where I didn't watch a minute of the fourth quarter live. I went back this morning and watched it. Um, and I'm surprised to see that the Knicks made a little bit of a comeback, but they wind up losing 123-117 at the fake Garden last night. Listen, it was a tough game. It was a bad game. It was an ugly game. It exploited a lot, or it exposed rather, a lot of the long term, or a lot of the underlying issues on this team, a lot of the issues that have been obvious. I didn't learn anything from this game. Instead, it was just more of a reiteration of the issues that I am constantly worrying about as a Knicks fan. And look, to start this game, we're going to get right into it, folks. This is an audio-only episode. It is since the first of a back-to-back, and since we're recording it the day of the next Knicks game against Charlotte, it's going to be a shorter one. But things actually started out very well for the Knicks. I think they had a 17-4 lead. So if you do the math there, let me see really quickly. 17-4 lead. So they had 123-17, 117 was the final. Let's do some fun math. 123 minus 17 is 106. 117, okay, minus 4 is obviously 113. I don't know what I just did. I can't do quick math on the spot, but I'm trying to find out after that 17-4 start how bad it got for the Knicks. I don't know, whatever. I don't have my phone on me to use my quick calculator. But like I said, they were red hot to start this game, despite Boston heavily employing cross matches and ghost coverages off of Josh Hart. That kind of remained the theme of this game, as the Knicks did a very good job of dealing with those coverages against the Raptors and the Hornets and the whoever's. You played a team that actually is well coached and a good defensive team, despite the lack of offensive talent. And early on, you got away with it, right? Hart was taking open looks. He was cashing them down. You had, I think the first bucket of the game was a wedge screen for Towns to exploit those, to get the proper switch and get him on the post properly. You had some Brunson Towns actions early on, despite the cross matches. Late in the first quarter, Brunson was exploiting Anthony Simons like he was lunch, and the Knicks were using Josh Hart as a traditional five-man when he was off the ball. He was in the opposite slot with the big in the paint as Towns was posting, which is what you want if Hart's going to take and make those threes. And I also thought the Knicks early on did a nice job defending. I thought they were making some good digs on drives. They had a few stops over the course of the game on some Spain pick and rolls, which I think could be a positive takeaway, because when offenses run stack in the half court against the Knicks historically have been really bad covering those pick and rolls. But they got a few stops in this game. I think it was in the second quarter maybe. Bridges forces a turnover on a stack. It was off the initial switch following the back screen. He jumps the lane mid-switch for a steal. And then in the third quarter, believe it or not, the Knicks got a couple of stops in a row off of a Spain where Towns was going under. Instead of going into a deep drop, he went under, and the Knicks got some stops out of that. That was in the third quarter. And listen, that third quarter and even the fourth quarter, I thought Mikal Bridges did an outstanding job of at least trying to keep the Knicks in the game. We're going to talk a little bit about him maybe later. Again, it's going to be a short episode. But yeah, there were some good things, and most of that came in the first quarter/quarter and a half. But then reality hit. That Boston's an actual, again, competent defense and a well-coached team, Joe Mazulla, who doesn't care if Josh Hart is open, And he said in the post game too, they made adjustments on it, and it was brutal. Karl Anthony Towns had some abominable minutes whenever he had the wing on him because Hart had the 5 on him. And then when you saw Boston put the 5-man back on Towns and Hart had the wing back on him, then you saw Towns dominate, right? Like in the top of the second quarter, Boston put Kata back on Cat, and Cat was dominating him. But then you had moments where Kata was back on Hart. And then Towns now has to deal with the wing and the double teams and the help defense. And that was really bad for Towns, and that was really bad for the Knicks as a collective offense. So the Towns and Hart minutes only got worse when Towns was on the post, because you saw Boston just use their ghost coverages, make those pre-rotations, and they doubled the post with their backside help. And there were also points in the game where I thought Josh Hart started to become hesitant again on a couple of open three-point looks that either forced longer possessions and didn't amount to anything, or there was one where he was hesitant to shoot from the corner and he steps out of bounds. And yes, you look at the final stat line. He took 7 3-point attempts. He was open enough in this game to take at least 10, at least. And if you're open, you need to take what the defense gives. And so, listen, I don't say this to be a big time critic of Josh Hart. Now, I've been pretty vocal that, like, I think we're all gonna find out at some point or another, if we all haven't yet, that Josh Hart, I truly believe, is still best as a second unit player who gets 25 minutes a game, give or take, and he's not best suited to be this high usage starter that I feel like a lot of the casual day-to-day fans see him as, because they like his personality and he's, gritty and reminds them of the old-time Knicks. But if you actually pay attention like a loser, and you nerd out and you dive into the details and you pay close attention to the basketball of it and the fundamentals and the X's and the O's, you can see why it doesn't really matter if Josh Hart starts or not. Like, he can be effective just as much as he was in those 3 games against, Charlotte and Toronto and whoever coming off the bench. He can be just as good. And I think that's why Deuce is more important in the long run to start when the Knicks are fully healthy, when OG comes back. I just think it makes much more sense for spacing reasons and for Karl Anthony Towns, especially with those Towns Hart minutes not yielding great defense. And then, you want to talk about defense. I thought as good as, a couple of moments that we just spoke about were, Boston just started continuously attacking weak Knick defenders the rest of the night. Towns was continuously exploited in pick and rolls in Spain. It was a historically bad, and I mean historically bad, like maybe his worst game as a New York Knick, maybe in his career, historically bad Jalen Brunson game on both sides. The offensive stuff was abysmal. He's having a rough offensive season. Stretch. He's having a rough offensive stretch. The 3-point shooting this season has actually not been good. But I think the offense will eventually come around this year. It was the defense that was really ugly to watch. They were throwing bodies around him to attack the glass. And obviously, in particular, Jalen Brunson on his switches was really bad. He was really awful on his switches against Brown. Jalen Brunson's small. and he's just not a great one-on-one defender. And so Jaylen Brown worked his way to 42 points last night on just 24 shots, 67%. And a lot of that was coming off those Brunson switches. And it was just a bad night for Mike Brown. Now, I don't blame Mike Brown fully because the Knicks aren't healthy right now. But I think we're starting to see a trend here where we can't keep consistently going to these 3-guard lineups when it's specifically Brunson, Clarkson, and Tyler Kolek. I mean, those 3 guys, they were awful minutes. Those minutes were terrible, especially considering Brunson was not on offensively to make up for it. And so when you have Brunson, Clark, and Kolek, and then like you saw in the second quarter when they were out there with Yabu and Cat, it was some of the worst stuff you're going to see. So I thought that was ugly. And I think the entire second unit was putrid in this game, as they've been pretty much all year. I'm going to be blunt. I think they desperately need a wing, even when Anunoby returns. And I think like to mitigate some of that, I thought you would have saw Mike Brown go to those Mitchell Robinson, Karl Towns minutes a little more, you know, where they've kind of gone away from that a little lately. Cat playing the 5 can be really brutal defensively, as we've seen, you know, and I also thought going back to the previous game against the Toronto, I was about to say Blue Jays, against the Raptors, we got some good stuff out of those flex screens and those Mitchell Robinson pin downs for Cat to get him in motion, get him at the basket. So you would have thought they would have went to that offensively, and obviously you had the better defense out there with those Cat at the 4 lineups, but you didn't get that as much. And then when you consider that, and you had those rough lineups where Brunson's getting beat on his switches as badly as he was, the adjustment was to start blitzing those Jaylen Brown pick and rolls in the fourth quarter. And then with that, all that did was end up conceding the open 3-point looks for all their role players because the Knicks were just put in rotation off the blitz every time. So I thought that was also a mistake. I feel like if you're not gonna let Brunson switch on, then at least let's throw a soft hedge. You know, I don't know about a full-on blitz. And I thought I was on Twitter this morning just, you know, reading some thoughts. And one of my favorite podcasts to listen to, they put up some good NBA content, but I usually listen to their Knicks episodes, and they're very good. The Hot Hand Theory, they put out a perfect tweet. I thought just everything I was thinking in this tweet. And they said, as good as Jaylen Brown is, you live with the inevitable ISOs with Jalen Brunson guarding him. If he cooks, he cooks. That's the word nowadays. The Celtics are too good at exploiting this strategy. This will not deter them from giving Brown the ball. It will encourage them to set up open threes and rim attacks. Perfectly put. Perfectly put. I never thought that was a viable strategy. The whole, like, let's let the team beat us instead of the star. You know, clearly, again, I can't put all this on Brown. The Knicks miss OG Anunoby, who's a top 5 wing defender in this game. They don't have the size down low and low man help to properly tag and recover. And they're not nearly as switchable, which would have obviously helped them on those Brown ISOs. Which is why I thought, again, they should have went to Cat at the 4 more. But they didn't. And so the Knicks take this loss, and it was another bad loss. I feel like some of those losses they've got this year have been really brutal. But it's not the end of the world. They've got a cupcake schedule with Charlotte tonight. Now, it is the second of a back-to-back, but they will be without Mitch too. But it's a team you need to take care of. So hopefully they can. And they bounce back tonight. But, yeah, quick shout-out to Mikal Bridges. I thought Mikal he was excellent. 35 points in total, 12 for 17 shooting, 8 for 12 on his threes. 3 for 3 on the foul line. Look at that. He got to the line some. 6 rebounds, 3 assists, no turnovers, 2 steals. He was a +6, 34 minutes played. An outstanding second half where he went for 30 of those points on 13 shots. I didn't think his defense was a major issue. He was one of the few Knicks who I thought actually held his own on that end, but it was the team defense, And then you go to the second unit. I don't really know. So Mikal Bridges, by the way, now has 2 game balls on the year, but you go to the second unit. I mean, I hated everybody's minutes. I think the one Knick I hated the least was, I guess, Tyler Kolek. So, for what it's worth, let's give him the game ball from the second unit. That's now 3 on the year. Sure. But rough game. Really, really, really rough game. And hopefully, man, tonight they can bounce back, because you don't want to lose a game like you did last night to a mediocre Celtics team who you hate. And, obviously it was a nationally televised game. And then follow that up with a clunker against a bad team. We know that this Knicks fan base can start to get a little toxic after a loss or two. So let's hope to bounce back, and we'll see what happens. But that's it for this game. That's it for this episode. No trivia in this one. Just going to wrap it up really quickly. Quick 17-minute show. So I'll see you all on the next show. I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll see you soon. Later. Hey guys, thank you for listening to BD4. Be sure to follow us on social media, subscribe to us on YouTube, and give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you next time.